Let's call to order the Avon Town Council meeting for September 21st, 2023. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Julie, would you mind taking a roll call, please?
Greg Zuzin.
Present.
Steve Eisenbarth.
Present.
Don Loudon.
Present.
Robert Pope.
Present.
Tim Roberts.
All right, first item on the agenda is consent agenda check register. That includes the check register for today, for September 21st, our work session meeting minutes on September 7th, our September 7th meeting minutes for our council meeting, as well as the Avon Landings Industrial Phase 1 bond release. Any discussion, questions? And would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. We accept all as presented.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Julie, would you mind taking a roll call vote, please?
Don Loudon.
4.
Steve Eisenbarth.
4.
Robert Pope.
4.
Greg Zuzin.
4.
Next item is our first of 2 public comment opportunities. Please step forward come forward to the microphone, state your name and address, and limit your time to 3 minutes. Seeing no one come forward, we'll close that section of public comment. Move on to council comment and liaison reports. Ms. Loudon.
Oh, I think it was last week. We had a meeting with some of the residents from Carnoustie over there by Presswick. So in attendance was Ian, Ryan, Robert, myself, and there was a good turnout. The seats were full and people listened, and we actually had 6 people sign that night for annexation, and their HOA will go around and try and gather additional support for that. That's it.
Thanks, Don. Greg?
Attended a couple of ribbon cuttings. On the 18th, we had an EDC meeting and the RDC meeting. And then today, Julie Randall from Family Promise met with Dan, Anna, Ryan, and myself. That's all I have.
Thanks. Steve?
Just the festives of Beasley's Orchard, going over there and enjoying that. That was fun. So no real updates on the youth assistance. Just say it's in play. It's definitely, they're working on it. So leave it at that.
Got a few of them here. So I had a school board meeting last Monday, and I want to pass on the thanks from the schools mentioned across the board from the school board for our rezone approval so they can move forward with beginning construction on the new middle school. I've already shared this with Ryan and Bill, but Dr. Wyndham specifically mentioned them by name for their hard work and helping guide the schools through the process with ease. As Dawn mentioned, the Carnoustie Circle annexation, I just want to add that in comparison to previous open house meetings, it was extremely positive. So either our education process is getting better and they're learning, or we're just doing that great of a job. I attended a neighborhood HOA barbecue event at the settlement the weekend before last. It was over the course of the entire day, but I was only able to spend a couple hours there speaking with a few residents, answering questions. I did spend most of the time speaking with their HOA chair. He was just very positive about his experience of working with Steve Moore on resolving that traffic issue, more or less dead for them as far as they're concerned, but also a couple stormwater issues impacting the neighborhood. So thanks, Steve. Last one, this one's rough. I'm sure many of you are aware, but I just want to make sure it's mentioned here. The town recently lost an employee, Lori Medlin. She was a wonderful part of our staff, and our hearts go out to her and her family. I want to thank her for her many years of service to our community. That is it for me. Moving on, new business award quote for drone show. Ms. Shelby Pride.
Good evening, Shelby Pride, Parks Director. I would like to ask and recommend the drone show quote. I would like to create a new event this year in Town Hall Park for Veterans Day, which is November 11th. It falls on a Saturday this year. I think it's important, one, to honor veterans in our community. I think this would be a great way to do it. In thinking of how we could celebrate those veterans, and specifically those that might have some PTSD, how can we celebrate and do a big celebration, but have it more low-key and quiet, without fireworks, without loud music and things of that nature. A drone show was actually brought to my attention by another staff member, and I looked into it, and I think it would be absolutely perfect for what I'm trying to accomplish and what my staff is trying to accomplish for this specific event. So I did some research, and you guys have the quote from Sky Elements Drone Shows. The quote is for $25,000 for an event on November 11th, we would get 150 drones in the sky. It would actually be on the north side of the lake. We've planned on where it could take place. So I would ask your permission for the event and approval of this quote, and I'll take any questions.
I know when we talked about this originally, we had talked, there are other numerous events that go on throughout the year. And we were trying to maybe capture these all into this one event. What success rate have you had in talking to those organizations? And then the other question is, you had also indicated that there were going to be donations from different businesses in our community, and wanted to know how you're doing with that.
Absolutely. So this is very preliminary. With approval tonight, it will be all systems go tomorrow on reaching out to contacts to be vendors for these for this event. I foresee sponsors wanting to come forward. We already do have a verbal commitment from a sponsor for $5,000 to be at this event with your guys' approval of this quote tonight. I envision, there's Daughters of the American Revolution that have been in contact with us. There's Helping Veteran American Families. There's so many organizations that I could see wanting to be a part of this event for an educational piece and to show these veterans their support and respect, but also for the community members that come out to the event, an educational piece of what they go through, what this could look like, how people are there to help, what are these resources. So again, like I said, I do have a verbal commitment for a sponsorship. I would imagine, with approval and moving forward with a tiered system of sponsorships like we've done for the rest of our events, we could recoup some of that.
It's a great idea. I think it's a unique idea, and it's not been done here in Hendricks County that I'm aware of. So I'm looking forward to it, actually.
My question kind of falls on that. So this is new. This is, I don't think there's ever been anything like that in Hendricks. Has anything been like this been done across the entire state?
Yes. So this company has done a few.
Specifically for a Veterans Day event?
No, not that I am aware of. They're more 4th of July, New Year's Eve, Christmas events from what my research has shown, but nothing for specifically Veterans Day.
I really like, Shelby, the idea that you're saying it's a lower key and respectful of the veterans. And then with the backdrop behind us of the beautiful pond and in the lake, if it's just so pretty to be able to have all that and have the reflection of that. So I could see that. The design that I like what they're doing here, the storyboard process and showing the programming animation, giving us a chance to look at that and see that, and let you see that. So and the video rendering that we saw before was, very impressive. So I could see this with American flag and having, or whatever we decide to do there. I know it's risky when you think about investing this kind of money and doing that, but to recognize the veterans and going on in that direction, I think it's a good idea.
I agree.
My last comment is, I know when we talked about this in the work session, because this is new pretty much throughout the state, we were going to attempt to get like a 3-year contract for the same price, because as this becomes a success, other people are going to, get in line to do it, and our price tag goes up and up. Where are we at Because this looks like it's a one-year contract.
This is a one-year contract. In speaking with the rep from this, I had some questions and he sent over the contract and there's some things that we could work through. I specifically asked about, social media discounts, promoting things for putting a press release out there. Those are not included in this. So I do have some questions for that rep. And one of those would be, yes, we're going to do this year, but what would this look like for a multi-year contract?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the $25,000 fee for payable to Sky Elements for the drone show for our Veterans Day park event.
Question, Dan, does that motion also need to include approving the contract?
I would, yes.
Okay. Would you mind amending your motion?
To approve the contract as written.
I'll second that.
We have a first and a second. Julie, would you take a roll call vote, please?
Don Loudon,
4.
Steve Eisenbarth,
4.
Greg Zuzen,
4,
Robert Pope.
4.
Thanks, Shelby.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Get to work, Shelby. Stay there, though.
I know.
Next item on the agenda, award quote for playground modification.
My maintenance superintendent, Chuck, brought to my attention one of our pieces of playground equipment up on the north side of the park. One of the T-swings, which you guys have imagery of what a T-swing looks like, is sagging quite a bit in the middle. And, if that were to break and children were on that, I don't even want to imagine that. So I'd like to take action and get that taken care of sooner rather than later. So upon research of our playground vendors who could do this, I also wanted to add a benefit to the community and add what's called a buddy swing or a generational swing, or there's many names for it. I think in these two quotes you guys have, it's actually named two different things. So I received two quotes, one from Miracle Playgrounds and one's from Mid-State Playgrounds for the replacement of this particular swing. What we have currently is just a one T-swing. It has two swings on it, just regular, like the belt swings that you guys are familiar with. I would like to, one, replace that, and you can see the cost breakdown on the quotes, but two, add this buddy swing, which would add another T-swing with the addition of that buddy swing, and you can see those images in your quotes there. Those quotes came in just, within $1,000 difference. We are very familiar with Miracle Playgrounds of Indiana. They've actually provided most of our playground equipment here in Town Hall Park, so I'm very comfortable with them. They would replace that, demo, redo everything. There would be a little bit of maintenance work from my staff in-house to prepare that, but adding that generational swing or buddy swing, I think would be very important for us. So again, I would like for you guys to approve the quote that I would recommend with Miracle Playgrounds of $10,092.82 and allow me to replace the swing.
Any questions? I just want to call out and appreciate the consideration. Not every child is completely able-bodied to take advantage of that. Thank you for that inclusivity. Just thinking of those. Would anyone like to make a motion? I'll make one. I move that we accept the quote from, trying to pull that right tab, Miracle Playgrounds of Indiana, not to exceed $10,090.82 to construct the swing and T-swing system as presented.
and for the clerk treasurer to
Thank
issue.
you. And amended to include the clerk treasurer submitting.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Julie, would you take a roll call vote, please?
Robert Pope,
4.
Greg Zuzen,
4.
Steve Eisenbarth,
4.
Don Loudon.
4.
Get to work on that one too.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Shelby. Next item on the agenda, authorized purchase of AEDs from the Duke grant. Dave Markson.
Hello, Dave Margison, Deputy Chief. We received a grant from Duke Energy for $22,000 to go specifically towards the purchase of AEDs that we would like to place in patrol vehicles, and hopes to have all of them outfitted with those devices. We're asking for your approval to expense that amount.
Any questions for Dave?
No, just again, thank you for always going after the grants and trying to stretch that budget as far as you guys can. You guys do a good job at that.
Yeah, and also it's nice to see a local, playing Pittsburgh, so that's nice.
Yes.
I think I jumped the gun a few meetings ago by giving you the kudos because I knew you received this grant money. So now you're here wanting to spend that grant money. So great. I'm glad we're able to do that. I want to call back to that and just thank you again directly. Now you're here. Great job. I know you guys are stretching this to utilize it, to get us AEDs in every vehicle and increase that public safety. So just great job, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you. We're very appreciative of Duke and their generosity for certain.
Would any other questions for staff? If not,
Just training, is there any regular reminding people? These things are on boards. Like I have a first aid kit on my truck all the time, and I have to put the thing in the window to give me a visual reminder that the thing's there. Do you know how these are going to be mounted, or any thought about that?
I'm not exactly sure how they'll be mounted. As far as the training goes, we have a officer that came from Morgan County. You all probably remember Officer Eric Cheek, and he is wanting to become certified in CPR and AED, which he would be the one to instruct these once that's done.
Good. Yeah, I just bring that up because I know it's one of those things that's great to have it, but we just got to always remind or, have a visual in front of us. I think officers will be on the ball on that because you're training them all the time. But yeah, it's just having it easily accessible,
Right.
which I'm sure it will. Oh, that's all.
I'd like to make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the public safety training and supply estimate in the amount of $21,885 and authorize the clerk treasurer to make payment.
We have a first. I'll second that one. Julie, we have a first and a second. Julie, would you mind taking a roll call?
That's the right dollar amount?
Yeah, I don't.
Oh, I'm looking at the estimate.
I'm sorry, that's what he had.
Let me look.
Was at the bottom.
Yeah.
At the bottom of the quote.
Oh, at the bottom? Okay. Just a
If I
second.
can clarify a little there on that's what I'm a little confused on myself. The quote they provided did not include child and infant pads for this AED.
Okay.
I requested immediately if they could give me those numbers, and I'm still waiting. So the number that they gave was a total of $21,885 for 15 devices, but we're required to spend the entire $22,000. So we would request that we add one more device, which would make it 16. The total then would be $23,344, but that does not include child and infant pads, which I'm sure we can find funds for that somewhere. But
So Dave, would it be good to put a not to exceed in my motion, amend my motion to be that?
I would believe that.
The motion's for 1344, because you already have 22,000 from the grant.
I believe you're correct, Greg, but to my understanding, we needed council approval to spend grant money, which might be something you may want to look into.
Yep, I'm looking at you, Dan. Help us out here. Help us navigate this.
This isn't about the spending side, this is about purchase. So the purchase is, I think they're asking you to approve the purchase of $23,344. That's what this is. Where that comes from is not part of this approval, really.
Okay.
This is approval of purchase of equipment.
So I'd like to amend that just for the dollar amount for clarity of $23,344.
And I still second. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dave, for that clarification. Julie, would you mind taking a roll call vote, please?
Steve Weisenbarth,
For.
Greg Zuzen,
For,
Don Loudon,
Or,
Robert Pope.
4.
Thank you.
Dave.
Yeah, thank you.
thanks, Dave.
Next item on the agenda, Easton Gray project agreement. Ryan, and I assume you're speaking to this one.
I will, but if Dan or anybody else wants to jump in, they're welcome to as well. So it's with great excitement that I'm bringing this here to you guys today after at least 3 long, hard years of working through the process. But as all of you know, I'll share with the public too, or anybody watching, the number one thing on our comprehensive plan was a desire to create a central gathering place in our community. And anytime we do any surveys, that's the thing we always hear is that there is no place in Avon to create a central gathering place. And so East and Gray, which is the project agreement that's in front of you guys tonight, will be that place in Avon to create a central gathering place. But not only that, it'll be a place that's unique to Avon where people will get out of their cars and walk around and interact together. That will have shopping, it'll have restaurants. And then, of course, we are discussing building a government center as part of East and Gray as well. That would be a partnership between the school, the town, the township, and the Chamber of Commerce, where we'd all kind of be in this central location as well. And so I know you guys have seen the letter of intent for this. And so what the project agreement is really a restatement of those business terms of the letter of intent. But now we've put all of the legal language in there as well, and all the assurances that we need to make sure that if anything goes wrong, that we're both covered. And so that's what's here before you tonight. Again, I think we've talked about this a lot. It did have to go through 2 other steps as well. It had to go to the EDC, and they approved it on Monday night. It also had to go to the Redevelopment Commission, and they approved it as well on Monday night. And so this is the last step, is for the town council to approve the agreement. There will still be other steps. There's plan commission approvals, and there's bond sales and other things, but this is the official piece where the town is making the official pledge.
We're lighting the rocket tonight.
We're lighting it, and then everything will go from here. So I'm happy to provide more detail. Again, I think it's something you guys have all seen, but if you want additional details, I'm happy to talk through any of it with you. And of course, Dan has reviewed this. This isn't just been this, again, it's been through a rigorous process of review. Dan and our legal team, Ice Miller, our bond counsel, Greg Garitas and Charlie from Financial Solutions Group, John Taylor and I have been on numerous phone calls. And so, it's been through a rigorous process to get to this point.
This is a big deal.
Mhm.
This is a big deal.
It's really good. I was just curious if there's been comments about the exhibits, those things are obviously concepts, moving forward, but has anything you want to say that if they had any comments in that?
No, I mean, some of it is always, they're always concept plans until they get to the plan commission, but they are making progress to that. And so section 1 of the HOPA district, actually, I believe is on the September plan commission agenda. And then I believe they've filed 2 sections of the residential portion that'll be on the November agenda. And they've told us that their goal is to submit the Riverwalk district by October 1st. So their commitment to us was it's not just going to be a slow rollout, that it's going to come fast. So Steve, that's kind of the point where these concepts actually become the real engineered drawings at this point.
Mm-hmm.
We have also seen, they have not allowed us to share it, but John and I have had the opportunity to see 3-dimensional and architectural drawings of what the Riverwalk district looks like. And it's really exciting. I had told them I'd love to be able to share that with you guys. I think we're close. So maybe in the next month or so, we'll be able to share that. And again, I think we want to share that with the community, because I think when everybody sees it, I know people are excited about it now, but I think they'll be even more excited about it once they see what it's really going to look like.
No, I appreciate it. I was just commenting because I know these concepts kind of get lost at times, and they're the best guess of what we could say, how it's coming together, and it's conceivable, and we could see these exhibits as realistic. But I think obviously it's just a great thing. I think all of us up here are very supportive of this.
Any further questions?
About time.
Yeah, about time. I'm going to jump in. I will make a motion to approve the Easton Gray project agreement as presented.
Second.
Third,
Oh.
fourth. Yep.
All right.
Second.
I'll
A.
let Julie, you pick on who was seconding that one.
Everybody second.
Julie, we have a first and a second. Would you mind taking a roll call vote, please?
All right, Greg Zuzen,
4.
Robert Pope,
4.
Don Loudon,
4.
Steve Eisenbarth.
4. And second.
Big game changer, big game changer. Moving on, next item on the budget is our public hearing, or pardon me, next item on the agenda is our public hearing for our 2024 budget. So at this time, I will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward to the microphone, state your name and address, and please limit your time to 3 minutes. Seeing no one come forward, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and move on to the 2024 budget discussion. And I assume you're going to lead the way on this one too, Ryan.
Yeah, I think just a couple of brief updates. I wasn't going to necessarily go into greater detail than what I gave you guys at the council meeting 2 weeks ago. I will share, if you didn't notice, if you look at, again, the best way for anybody who wants to see what's different in our budget is the summary of budget changes. And I know last time we talked about the levy appeal, the town council did approve the levy appeal at the last meeting. And so if you notice in the last page of that summary of budget changes, there's now a section that reads levy appeal, and it has $420,000. And then it kind of has prioritized, if we were not able to get that levy appeal, if the levy appeal is not approved, that would be our prioritization of what we would cut. And so basically, that kind of identifies it. And so what's been presented to all of you is actually a balanced budget based on what we know we can do in terms of. And so then the one thing that would happen if we weren't to get it, we may have to make cuts based on that. The only other thing I would offer is, if you notice, there's an other category that's $52,980. I haven't necessarily identified what those specific things are. If you guys want that to be defined, I can do that by your final budget adoption on October 5th. I don't think that's an issue. We could pull that together pretty quick and itemize that if necessary. But I think that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
When do you know we'll have an update on that levy appeal?
That's a great question. So let's talk about process a little bit, because it's a little awkward and strange. So we will not hear about the levy appeal till probably the end of the year. They have to let us know by the end of the year. Now, it could be sooner, it could be later, but we're at the DLGF's timeline on when they review it and when they approve it. But so what really happens is you guys will approve a budget. And now, if you remember, whenever you approve a budget, you're approving the budget to be submitted to the state. The state still reviews the budget and then says, this is what we think you can have, even though you asked for X. And so that's the terminology we use for that is a 1782. So Julie will get a 1782 at some point that is the state saying, all right, you submitted your budget, it's now approved. And then the town council has 7 days from that 1782, if you want to amend it or change it, that you could do that. And so there's still another step. I know we always talk about budget approval. So to answer your question, Greg, we will know before the 1782 comes out whether we get our levy appeal or not. And so then we'll get the 1782. And if that will show what we have, what the actual budget will be. So at that point, we can come back to you guys. If it's not, we'll get back. But the budget won't still be approved at what you're submitting it at now. So it won't be the 8,120,000. It'll be 7,700,000 plus whatever you get for the levy appeal. And that's what the 1782. So although you're submitting a request for 8,120,000, it doesn't necessarily mean that's what will actually come out. Does that make sense to everybody? I know that's kind of awkward and weird because we talk about it as being approved.
Can I ask you a clarifying question?
Sure.
So what I hear is, so we approve our budget, at least to request from the state, which does include this levy appeal or the max amount that this levy appeals comes in. So later this year, say we don't get none of that levy appeal. Let's do worst case scenario. We get none of that levy appeal. We get that 1782 back. We do have an opportunity to say, okay, we want to modify our budget to cut, or the things that we are approving now or at our October 5th meeting that we are okay purchasing. We'll have an opportunity to say, okay, stop, take these out so that we can bring our budget into balance.
Yes. Actually, you won't even have a choice. You'll have to. And that's what the 1782, if we don't get the levy appeal, it's going to come out and it's going to say, you have a $7,700,000 budget. And that's going to be our budget. So at that point, that's when I'm going to come back and I'm going to say, we didn't get it. We can't do these 5 things. I mean, it's almost automatic. One doesn't happen without the other.
Yeah, I would say that when you, we talk about it as approval, but it is really just a recommendation to the DLGF of what you want your budget to be. Only the state can approve the budget. I point this out to people sometimes when they complain to local officials about your budget. You really don't approve your own budget, they approve your budget. So what they're really doing is they're not replacing their judgment for years. They're just saying, do you have revenue to support what you want to spend? And so if you get a 1782 notice which says your general fund, we're not going to approve, we're going to approve 200,000 less in your general fund than you scheduled. And we're also going to go down to your food and beverage, and we're also going to say that you've overestimated your revenues there. So we're going to cut that $100,000. They'll say this, they'll say, we are going to make those cuts to your budget. So you might figure out which line items you want that to come from, but your budget is cut. So then you do that. You'll have to do that. And then if your revenue is, if you were right, your revenue is a little higher than you anticipated, then in 2024, later in the year, after you've cut your budget, you of course can come back. If you have the cash, you can do an additional appropriation. I mean, you might be able to get some of that back. That sounds like a very circular process, but I think that last step is also worth noting, is that you may have an opportunity to get back some of what you cut if your revenue is higher than the state believes. And they get that way. Sometimes they get that way in the 1782s because they will look at your cash balance on June 30 of this year, and they will assume that all of the approved appropriations for the rest of the year will be spent. So if you have department heads who underspend this year, then that's where, I mean, all of a sudden you might have 50 or 100,000 that the DLGF assumed you would not have. That's why these appropriations become possible in 24 after they make you cut the same thing. So just something to keep in mind is you may have 3 swipes of this apple.
Any further questions for staff?
So really, this is, if you guys have any discussion or any feedback, this is your opportunity. My goal is, if there's any changes I need to make, I want to make those between now and October 5th, because we will ask you guys to adopt the budget on October 5th.
Does that appease our clerk treasurers? Any further questions or discussion on this?
It's time to move on it. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to say once again, thanks for, this has been a very smooth budget process. So thanks, Ryan. Appreciate you and staff's hard work on it.
What about considering providing more funding to the chamber?
I think that's a discussion for us. I like that Ryan's keeping quiet on it.
Well, I'm asking you guys.
What amount are you thinking?
Doubling it from 10 to 20?
I would suggest that we have a discussion to make some sort of set expectations for what we expect out of the chamber for not only the money that we are giving them now, but what money we might be able to give them in the future. And while I want to have that discussion, I don't know that for this right now is the time. So I would suggest maybe we put that on our next work session.
You know, that's kind of been our way out of this for how many years? That process. I'm not going to be at the next work session, which is the same day that we have to approve the budget.
Sure.
So we either say we're in or we're out. I mean, I don't see why not. I mean, we look to the chamber, we do things in tandem with the chamber. They're going to be in our building when it's built. Sometimes we treat them like the redheaded stepchild.
I should be taking offense there, Greg.
They divorced you a long time ago.
I think Ryan's pulling up the Form 1s right now. I mean, we have presented a balanced budget.
Yeah, this
So if this is something that needs to be discussed, now we're going to have to figure out where we're pulling it from and who's getting cut. Because right now, the budget is balanced.
It's in the edit fund though, right?
It is in the edit fund,
We
but
have
still
a
the edit fund is balanced.
Balanced.
But yeah, so to Julie's point, if we can add additional support to the chamber, but then we have to reduce it from somewhere else.
Well, if you
And
can
edit is tight. So edit this year, we actually had to cut $200,000 out of the edit budget because we have been spending more edit than we've been actually receiving. And so our fund balance has been decreasing.
If you could look into that.
I feel like we've done this in the past. And Dan, please correct me and make sure I'm not putting us in legal trouble. Can I ask that each of us give some feedback to Ryan about this particular topic, maybe suggestions on where we might be comfortable with bringing the budget back into balance, if we can offline, share those comments with Ryan so he has some consensus on where this lies. Does that make you feel better make you feel more comfortable on some progress being made on that issue?
That's fine.
Is that kosher, Dan? Good deal.
In the meantime, I can do some shopping around for the cost of scissors.
For a what?
The cost of scissors.
Oh,
Any
that'd be 11,000 then.
other questions or discussion on this?
Nope.
All right. Moving on. Next item, resolution 2023-12, rescinding DRG tax abatement. And John or Ryan? Oh, Mr. Taylor. All right. The other Mr. Taylor.
Yes, this resolution would rescind the tax abatement approval for Distribution Realty Group. We commonly refer to them as DRG. And so as you recall, last year, in June of last year, you were asked to approve a tax abatement for DRG, 10-year real property tax abatement for their project. They have recently advised the town that they are not going to do that project. So that your prior tax approval, tax abatement approval stands on the records, and that prior approval is recorded in the office of the assessor so that they can claim their tax assessment. And so just in order to make sure that the taxing authorities know not to give an abatement to DRG, we need to rescind that approval because that project's not going to be built by them. There may be some other project there that the parcels are still in an area which is properly designated so that someone could be eligible for tax abatement, but not DRG. So that's all this resolution does, is that it rescinds the prior tax abatement, and it also directs in the resolution the clerk treasurer file and notify the county assessor of this action. Pretty simple. Otherwise, does not affect the eligibility of the parcels for tax abatement and economic development. Simply says that DRG won't be getting it on these parcels.
Any questions, discussion?
This is that land on Bradford Road that used to be called the tent rental place, that right there?
Yes, yeah. So DRG built the two buildings, the 700,000 square foot and the 300. They came through for another building to the south of those two. That was going to be 250,000 square feet. And so that's the project. The 250,000 square feet is the one they are no longer moving forward. So it doesn't impact the tax abatement the DRG has on the million square foot buildings that are just north of there.
I think when we discussed offline, this is essentially it's just cleaning paperwork. Correct me if I'm wrong, but no one's going to get that tax abatement unless it was DRG fulfilling the project that we approved.
Yeah, what happens is if somebody did come in and you all granted an abatement to a different developer, and then we record that and the assessor looks down, has two different approvals for one parcel, one group of parcels, she's going to call and say, you guys can't do that. You can't give the abatement more than one. So just to keep a clean record, when this happens, we just, a resolution rescinding is always makes it much easier to have our paperwork all in order for the assessor. So this is just simply part about an understanding that tax abatement's a two-party proposition. You guys and the county assessor, we'll have to all be on the same page. This helps.
Any further discussion? If not, would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2023-12 as written.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Julie, would you mind taking a roll call vote, please?
Don Loudon,
4.
Steve Eisenbarth,
4.
Greg Zuzen,
4.
Robert Pope.
4. Next item, final reading, ordinance 2023-18, amending the travel per diem. I assume you're speaking to this one as well, Mr. Taylor.
Yes, this ordinance changes provisions in the employee handbook regarding business travel reimbursement. And as I discussed during the introduction, this is a department head requested change, which would clarify how we handle the per diems and the meal reimbursements. So what it does is it updates the amounts to be consistent with the United States General Services amounts for this year. And then just says that these reimbursement amounts can't be aggregated. Otherwise, you can't skip meals and then spend more money at other meals, that it's kind of a use it or lose it sort of thing. And so it just goes to clarify the policy for employees. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff?
No.
Yeah. Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, ordinance 2023-18, that to amend the employee handbook as revised, that we accept it.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Julie, would you mind taking a roll call vote, please?
Robert Pope,
4.
Don Loudon,
4.
Steve Eisenbarth,
4.
Greg Zuzen.
4.
Next item, legal counsel report. Mr. Taylor. Again.
We've been working with your staff on the several projects that need to be done as we get toward the end of the year, but just a couple things. We'll be working with Ms. Pride on the actual transfer documents for AJAA. And I told Shelby this some time ago, but sometimes I find it amazing that got done. So many times a project that large, it's easy to see the 19 reasons why it can't be done. And so I think Mandela said everything looks impossible until it is done. And so I applaud your staff on getting that done. But we're going to help them just do a couple little of the pieces of paper that need to get done yet. So we're going to do that, and that'll be all taken care of. So we'll work on that. Ryan told me today that we believe that a certain sewer line has been relocated, which I am personally very happy about. And we'll keep working on that matter and see that to its resolution. And then we will have, as you know, some year-end reports that come to you as part of your oversight on internal controls, Title VI, risk management. Those meetings will be going on here in the coming weeks. And then you'll get reports on those. And so we'll try to do our job and shepherd those things as best we can, so that if there are any big issues we see that you need to know, we'll make sure they're pointed out to you for being addressed. We continue to love to work with your staff, though, and we're happy to be here.
Thanks, Dan. Next item, second of 2 public comment opportunities. If you'd like to speak, please come forward to the microphone, state your name and address, and please limit your time to 3 minutes. Seeing no one come forward, we'll close that section of public comment. Another chance for council comment. Anyone?
Nope. Nothing.
I will not be here on the October 5th meeting.
Thanks for letting me know, Greg.
Hold the applause.
Next one, council calendar. Ryan?
First, thank you guys I appreciated your support on the budget. I do want to give a shout out to all my staff and Julie Loker, who does a lot of work on the budget. So Brian as well. Brian's been instrumental in getting all those Form 1s updated and everything. So it does take a lot of coordination, but I'm not the one that does it. All these guys do it. So thanks to all of them for their hard work on that. Work session, 5:30 p.m. on October 5th. Town Council, October 5th as well at 7 p.m. And if you can, salsa under the stars tomorrow, 6:30 here at the park. So if you have a dance partner, come on out. We'd love to have you and to host you. So
Will you be coming?
I unfortunately cannot make it, but Julie's going to be there.
She'll be solo. She won't have a dance partner.
Thanks,
Looking for
Ryan.
a dance partner. So if anyone wants to volunteer.
Thanks, Ryan. Meeting adjourned.